This is a WTVA 9 News Severe Weather Update.
Well, as you can see scrolling at the bottom of your screen now, a tornado warning has been issued for some sections of Atala County in effect until 8 p.m. Doppler radar indicated rotation. The reason this tornado warning has been issued, this is pretty much exactly the time frame we've been talking about this evening, and we do expect the number of potentially tornado-producing thunderstorms to increase as we go into the next few hours here. Meteorologist John DeLusick and I, of course, been watching things here behind the scenes at the television station as this now has come about. Let's track where we're most concerned as of this moment. And as you can see, there's looking at the leading edge of this, a couple of spots where we have some rotation along the leading edge. It's actually a little bit more obvious when we start looking at locations here near Bisdale and Lexington there, moving toward Bowling Green in the west community. So obviously this is still the far western portion of our area. Let's get a storm track and we'll double check this. John, if you'll call Gabe real quick, because he's checking in with me. So we can make sure he's aware. He just got that warning himself, and so he is repositioning out here to try to get in the best position possible for this. So we're going to double check the speed. I believe still at about 50 to 55 miles per hour with the latest update here. Weather Service Jackson going 45 miles per hour. So let's go right at 50 miles per hour with this. That'll give us kind of the earliest possible time with that. So about 50 miles per hour. We'll track that Kruger, East Achula, Lexington, Ebenezer, Berryville, and we'll kind of do a wider track than just the area of this warning to give some initial alert here. And so if you're in these locations ahead, we need to be getting to our tornado safe place with this. And you can see that on the screen here. If you know somebody that maybe lives in Ware or Kilmichael or Kosciuszko, as this is moving toward Vaden and West and Pickens as well, snap a picture of the television screen and go ahead and text it to them. Let them know we're looking for a sturdy structure as we go the middle of the lowest floor, as this is a line that has produced a sporadic tornado damage through the evening and could potentially continue to produce either wind or tornado damage going forward over the course of the next couple of hours here. That is the reason why this warning has been issued. At this instant, it is the potential for Doppler radar indicated rotation that the National Weather Service has prompted them to issue this tornado warning. That said, as you can see with back here, as it's checking on a previous warning before, this previously did have a confirmed tornado touchdown with it. That is not the case on the latest warning with it. Luckily, an improvement there, but that confirmation obviously happens after the fact. We're juggling a couple of television events going on right now, including a game that's going to be a bowl game going on ABC. So we're going to be coming in and out of your programming on ABC as necessary. We're going to send ABC back to that programming here for a moment and stick with it on NBC as we're tracking these storms. So keep it here for the very latest as we continue to watch things. On the wider shot here, we are looking at tornado watch that now has been since our broadcast at 6 o'clock extended all the way to the Alabama state line. The folks at the National Weather Service in Jackson doing that extension. You'll note that the tornado watch here remains in effect until 11 p.m. And so there could potentially be other locations need to be added to this. Part of the reason is just a technical thing. We can't add it unless there were initially some counties, and the folks up in Memphis didn't have any counties, so they have not been able to add any at this moment here. So it's possible that additional counties could be added north here at some point in the future. I'm going to go back to our closest radar on Storm Track Doppler radar. And John, when you get a moment here, we'll look at the latest meso that came out. They continue to kind of look at locations potentially in Alabama to possibly also need an additional watch at some point in the future here for tonight. What we do have with this storm that has prompted this tornado warning is what's called a particularly dangerous situation watch because of the potential for long-lived tornadoes. And I will say this storm southwest of Pickens there is starting to look a little more impressive on kind of the latest scan here. You see how it's kind of extending forward and kind of has where it looks like a fist, like punching ahead right there toward Pickens is where that's moving. That's where our rotation definitely is increased. Now, this is a little bit of a radar error in all likelihood that we're looking at, but certainly that is a storm, a circulation that is continuing to strengthen at this time. So kind of looking at the latest scans there, and I'm going to see if we can change our radar height to get a better look at the timing on the front end of this. Give me just a moment while we go up a couple of scans on this here. So we'll have to go above the surface to kind of catch that. And so it looks like our latest there, pretty much right along I-55 south there of Atala County is where this is the most impressive at this time. So that's moving there toward Goodman, eventually in Durant. Kosciuszko, you're still solidly to the east of this and not under this tornado warning at this time. So I'm going to get you kind of a more of a localized track on this as we look at this about 50 miles per hour on the speed of this. So tracking that specific section there, and let's double check the angle, make sure we have that correct. Yeah, so it's probably the best possible angle there. So you can see there, Pickens, we're looking at about 7:15 for you. Current time is about 7:06. Goodman, 7:23. Durant at 7:32. And eventually the West Community about 7:44. If we were to extend that a little more deeply into the area, that would eventually get here closer to Kilmichael at about 8:10 or so. We're looking at Minerva there about 8:15 as approaches French Camp generally. About that time frame, for whatever reason, French Camp not wanting to pop up on our map here. Let's see if we get that to come in there. There we are, 8:08 French Camp. So Doppler radar indicated rotation, though certainly that area of circulation on that storm is continuing to increase in intensity. The folks with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters continuing to kind of look along this line. I'm going to bring in our meteorologist, John DeLusick, here for a moment. He's been kind of juggling a number of different things here with us. And John, what are you hearing from really people at home, storm chasers, things of that nature?
Right now, I haven't had a chance in the last few minutes to check with the storm chasers. And basically, right now, as a matter of fact, there is nothing from anybody that's really posted anything along that line of storms that's moving into our area. At least that's good news, but it's only been a short little bit of time since we've had that warning. So, but I'm looking out for those things, and plus I'll check and see what those storm spotters are saying here in just a few moments.
Okay, have you heard anything from, what was Gabe saying?
Gabe, right now we're trying to position him into the Ackerman area. Would that be, because that storm would be heading more or less toward the Ackerman area. We're just trying to find out about if the shelter is open there. We're trying to make sure that Gabe would get there safely if in case something does happen. There's supposedly the courthouse there, and that's Gabe actually calling right there now.
Okay, well you take that call from Gabe.
Alrighty.
Appreciate that. We're obviously trying to position our folks where it makes the most sense. We'll pop John's mic down if we could, please, as we kind of prepare ahead for this. And this is the time now where we're ahead of this. We need to make some assessments as to whether or not where we're at is a safe place. And so places that are not safe places as this moves into the area. Most tornado fatalities occur in cars, trucks, and manufactured homes. So if where you're at and where you will be as this moves in over the next few hours is in one of those locations, we need to probably make an assessment to go someplace a little bit more sturdy. And so we do have a list of some of those area storm shelters at WTVA.com. You can just use your phone, open the camera app, QR code there to show that up. We'll address a new tornado warning that's been issued. It does include locations up to Kosciuszko there in Atala County here in just a moment. But obviously looking ahead, as we kind of plot on for just a moment additional storm shelters, we do have quite a few in our area, and appreciate Craig CC, who is got his PhD in meteorology from down at Mississippi State University, for kind of compiling a list that we started, and he's just kind of taken it further. There are a lot of storm shelters ahead of this, including a few there in Kosciuszko, in the western portion there of Atala County, quite a few in Winston County, and then obviously the numbers increase farther north and east. That complete shelter list is there at WTVA.com if you use your smartphone. And so obviously encourage you to do that because we do expect that some of those are going to need to be utilized as we go into this evening. Okay, so looking at our overall line here as we kind of bring down that area of unsafe places there, you can see that the folks at the National Weather Service there in Jackson kind of issuing along this line, because we've had these little brief spin-ups, like these areas of increasing concern. Maybe not brief spin-ups, but areas of increasing concern. And one near Pickens, and additionally maybe one there trying to form closer to Canton. So they're just kind of blanketing ahead on the tornado warnings there, including up to Kosciuszko, though there's still probably a little while before that makes it to you. So if I track that whole section of this line here toward the north and east, we're still going to go about 50 miles per hour to give kind of some additional locations. I'm going to take this out beyond our warning. For our area, we're looking there. Pickens about 7:16, Goodman at 7:22. Some of these up here at the top, we'll refine that the time we gave you a moment ago as we were zoomed in closer. If it's a couple minutes off from that because we're on the wider shot here, go with the time we showed you a moment ago or the earlier of those times. Obviously, better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. Vaden, we're looking at about 7:36. There, Kosciuszko 7:45, Kilmichael 7:50, French Camp at about 8:05, Ware 8:12, Eupora 8:15, Ackerman 8:21, Louisville 8:36, and then Starkville, generally speaking, close to around 8:50 to 9 o'clock as this kind of moves in from the south and west. So a lot of stuff on the screen here. Unfortunately, we got a lot of data layered, but there are two areas here, one near Lexington, kind of bowing ahead of this, another one near Pickens that kind of bring the most concern, just looking at where we're at with this and kind of waiting for that latest data to populate there. The one near Pickens, as we kind of look closer, and this just keeps grabbing on the confirmed tornado warning. I want to emphasize that this is Doppler radar indicated rotation on this at this point. This is not a confirmed tornado at this moment, but I show it very close to this be I-55 right there, and this would be a US 51. And so kind of between those two at this moment here is where it's probably the strongest, very near I-55, moving toward and along I-55. So if you do know some folks here that maybe all the way up in Winona, going to be traveling along 55, looking to head south here, just a heads up, probably not a great idea because there's an area of rotation there. And yet another one up here closer to Lexington as well that we have been watching, though it's still broad enough. And I will say that this kind of is getting into that zone far enough away from the radar in Jackson, too far away from the radar in Memphis, too far away from the radar in Monroe County that we have to look fairly high up, over a mile up. So sometimes, especially in this sort of situation, there are things that are going on down toward the ground that aren't immediately obvious when we look at radar. So that's why, out of an abundance of caution, we encourage you to go to that tornado safe place. At this instant, we're looking at Doppler radar indicated rotation that could potentially develop into a tornado. And out of these two areas of circulation, I do not have debris that we can confirm at this time, thankfully. Current time is 7:13 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologist John DeLusick here as we're tracking a line of storms attempting to produce tornadoes moving into north central and central Mississippi and eventually moving into east and potentially northeast Mississippi. I'm going to go to our camera in Kosciuszko with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters. Appreciate those good folks there out monitoring these storms this evening, getting in position as they move into and through the area. You can see some of the lightning there on the horizon. That's likely a cell tower light there. Our dew point up from the 6 o'clock hour to 64. This is kind of the critical number here. We're waiting on moisture to increase. There's a wedge of moisture moving in from the south and west, and in that wedge there's going to be enough instability and fuel to try to produce tornadoes. Potentially brief tornadoes, but it's not impossible we could get one that sets down for 10 or more miles. That would be significant and could produce strong damage. That is not going to be necessarily every tornado. There are some indications that the long-lived tornadoes are less likely in the far northern portion of the state based on kind of some of the latest trends, so that's an encouraging sign. But Kosciuszko, you are under that tornado warning that has been issued for your location because of the rotation on this thunderstorm as it moves in. So again, we're looking at the lightning and everything there. There's no thunderstorms related to that at this point in Talbot County except for the far southwest tip, but that batch is moving in from the south and west. Wider shot here. I know we do have a lot of folks, heavy rainfall going, we're up here Union County. You're talking south. Why aren't you talking about us? Farther north, the fuel for severe thunderstorms or tornadoes is more limited, thankfully. But there's just this wedge of fuel that's just going to kind of move through the area, and that's why we continue to have that severe weather risk, that tornado risk associated with this as it kind of moves into the area. Just kind of looking here at our chat, and let's make sure for kind of folks behind the scenes here that if we have anything we need to post when we get that information, let's go ahead and make sure we put that in the severe weather chat as well. And I do want to bring in our meteorologist, John DeLusick, who has had a chance to finish repositioning where we're going to put our Gabe Maynor, and is now kind of getting things settled in with the latest with some of the storm chasers and everything. John, is there anything that you're kind of coming up with at this point?
Basically, right now, Gabe's going to act.
And we'll give here just a moment here to see if we can get John's microphone up.
Alrighty.
Okay, go ahead and go. And
okay.
if we can pop him there on the 2 boxes, well, that'd work.
Alrighty.
So go ahead, John.
Alrighty. Well, basically, more or less, we're looking at Gabe going to Ackerman, trying to catch that storm before it moves into the Ackerman area. As it moves into our viewing area, it's still, again, adjacent to our area. Also want to mention that little mesoscale discussion that was just issued a few moments ago. Basically, is telling the folks in Alabama heads up, basically, because of a couple of reasons. One, the storms that are along the Mississippi-Alabama border region right now that are trying to get a little stronger, and then obviously the squall line that's moving in through the Delta. Both of those reasons why that they're telling them there's about a pretty good chance that later on in the next couple hours there will be a pretty good chance that there will be a tornado watch issued for those folks also.
Okay. Any talk about expansion northward beyond the existing watch?
I have not seen any talk on that, but there's just basically that it would be expanded most likely, at least into the way things are looking, most of northwest and west Alabama, along with maybe portions of Tennessee, so that could be expanded northward in that region. Right now, there is no talk yet that I see anything about northeast Mississippi,
okay.
At least right now.
Okay, hopefully that is something that continues. Appreciate that. That's our meteorologist, John Lucy,
right.
Continue to work things behind the scenes here. Of course, if you're posting information, easiest way to send that to us is using the WTVA weather app. You can also view our live stream there as well. Free and available for all of those various devices. You can hear my bings and stuff going on here behind the scenes as I'm kind of looking through the latest information as well. But luckily, it's a lot of maybes and a lot of possibilities and not a lot of confirmation at this point. But that a lot of times is the way this goes. And unfortunately, once we start getting confirmation, that's when things get rough. A couple things I've noticed here while we're talking a moment ago. On the north side here, and this is not always well represented, there is a little rotation even on the far north end here. I just don't know for sure that it's not what we would refer to as elevated, meaning it's not forming in the boundary layer. But a lot of times when it kind of bends back like this on the north end of a squall line, you can have a little area of rotation. This is not warned up here, but certainly something we're going to be watching as it kind of moves through. I'll check our Greenwood camera. Again, the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters there kind of looking out, see if we have a shot of that. Obviously heavy rainfall there, and they're in a position back there where it looks like we have some of the drier air that's already kind of moved in. So Greenwood proper, once this moves through drier air, it's kind of this main line comes through and then you're done. And so that's what looks like has already kind of hit that reporting station there in Greenwood proper, which makes sense. It's kind of behind this. It's more this leading area there that we're kind of watching as that kind of moves through Carroll County and approaches Grenada County. We have not really tracked that section of the storm. Let's get a track on that at about that 50-ish miles per hour. Let's get Grenada in that track, though it does look like it might be aimed just a little bit east. Well, I think it's good to have Grenada in that track. So we show Grenada at 747 there, Winona at 742, Emory at about 720, 726, North Carrollton there. Eventually getting closer to Gore Springs, though, by right around 757 if it kind of continues at that angle there. And if that we do anticipate, and most of our projections do have these storms weakening a little bit as they go farther north, and that's part of the reason why we're going back and forth and trying to figure out if we're going to expand the tornado watch, is because of that. And so we show Duck Hill 745 on this northern storm. There's the southern one we're watching closely as well, but eventually we went to get to Calhoun County, Big Creek there, we're looking at about 814, Bruce 822, Vardaman at 834, and then for those folks that know, Scout Camp Yakna there at about 8:45. There are not a lot of folks out there this time of year at that location. Sliding south on our line and kind of changing up the radars here. I believe we're probably back to the Jackson radar. One of the reasons it gets a little weaker, you'll notice just there's a scan here. It looks bad, and then it doesn't look as bad, is because the radar is looking through this entire line of thunderstorms. That does weaken how much information, how much energy is shot back at the radar site. So that does sometimes make things a little tricky, but 2 spots there where we show some of that rotation, one near Goodman, generally speaking, and another one there south and east of Acona, kind of west of the West community. So let's track each of those individually. The one near Goodman, we've talked about this a few times here, and let's make sure we have the angle right, that this is pretty close there to I-55. And I might not fully capture where that is. Let me kind of slide this over just a little bit more. So that's kind of our best angle at this point. And again, close to, let's make sure this is at 55 miles per hour, because this is speed up 50 miles per hour. So we're looking at this Aberdeen Junction at 726, Durant at 730, the West Community at 741. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon here tracking tornado warning for sections of Attala County. 2 different warnings impacting Attala County on a line of thunderstorms that has a lot of areas to spin. Unfortunately, we're looking fairly high up, so I don't have a lot of confirmation on this point. It's just, this is the area we're watching, this is what it could do, and then of course we get that confirmation after the fact. But this area that I'm tracking the most closely here is one of our more impressive at this time, and an updated location as it's basically between Highway 51 and Interstate 55, moving there pretty much right along. I believe that's a Big Black River there, Durant West Community, as it moves toward the north and east. Kilmichael 802 as that eventually moves into Montgomery County, though thankfully you're not in that tornado warned zone at this time here. Additional tornado warnings do encompass Kosciuszko. Again, still looking at areas ahead of this. Camden is the area of circulation that we're watching most closely there, but that's just outside WTVA 9 News viewing area. Let's get the angle on this so we can get that right, make sure we're tracking ahead correctly there. So Camden working up toward Bolatusha, that could be the one that gets pretty close there to Kosciuszko if it continues. Let's get to the wind mode here. Still showing some rotation there, not a ton at that exact spot. Okay, so as we track that toward the north and east, Kosciuszko at about 753. We're looking at a French Camp at about 816. I know we were tracking a different time a minute ago on a different storm. That's the thing. We got a number of these storms that are kind of coming in as they roll in from the south and west. Bolatusha at about 739 there for you as we're walking toward Kosciuszko at 753. A reminder of what we're looking at here. Again, this is Doppler radar indicated rotation that could potentially produce a tornado at some point in the future. We do not, thankfully, have confirmation of tornado debris, and we do not have spotter reports of that at this time. Hopefully that is something that does continue as we go into tonight, but certainly watching this very, very closely as these storms move into the area. So what should we do? We need to make sure we've worked ourselves to our tornado safe place, a small windowless room where we can wrap up with blankets and pillows, put on a helmet to protect ourselves from the potential for debris, because obviously once we know we have debris, we've gotten to that point where it's obviously at that point we need to be in our storm shelter, and it's kind of too late at that point there. I want to give a appreciate Raina for sending us this shot here of her folks there with their helmets on in their safe place in the Chula community. Of course, Chula right there as they've been watching us. Luckily, they're at the point where they can come out of their tornado safe place, and that safe place selfie. Appreciate them for sharing that with us. You can share your pictures, whether it's a safe place selfie, whether it is tornado damage, or whatever it is that you have to share with us. By emailing us weather@WTVA.com or using the WTVA weather app to send that in. We always appreciate that. You can tweet at WTVA weather as well. But those safe place selfies, a good place to be as opposed to actually out trying to capture shots of a tornado that frankly is only best case scenario going to be visible with lightning flashes. So a reminder as well that this is a situation where we need to make sure that we are in the sturdiest structure possible if we're especially down here south of US 82 in this tornado watch. Manufactured homes are great 363 days a year, but there's a couple days a year when we need to be someplace stronger, and this is one, because unfortunately most tornado fatalities come in manufactured homes. You're 20 times more likely than if you're in a site-built home to die if you're hit by a tornado, and the only tornado fatalities we've had in this part of the state the last decade have been in manufactured homes. That's not picking on anything or anybody, but that is to be aware that we need to be someplace stronger on a night like this when we have tornadoes. And so that's why we have that tornado shelter list you see there. I recommend you find your way not in cars and trucks and manufactured homes. That's where most injuries from tornadoes are. They're in those places. And so if you're assessing where you're at, you want to avoid large open rooms, upper floors, and rooms with windows. Interior, lowest floor is what we're looking for to make sure we're the safest that we can be. We want to make sure also that we have multiple ways to find out, because again, we expect more warnings over the next few hours. Weather call, the weather app, 2 things I recommend the most. Weather app does great 99.9% of the time. It's just anytime you're talking about data, you know, sometimes data comes in a little late. phone calls don't. You either get it or you don't. And so luckily, that's the reason why we always talk about Weather Call. It does a very good job of that. I have it for myself, my family. We have it for everyone at the TV station as well. So looking now closer here, Goodman and Durant, where I show the strongest part of this, I don't have an obvious signature looking at the wind mode here. I do have the interaction right there pretty much over top of Durant, and when I go back to the precipitation mode there, it's pretty easy to see how that is an area of rotation just on that, working its way again between 55 and 51, I-55 and US 51, where that has tracked for quite a while now. I'll look at the tornado debris. There's not, because I don't have the strong pixel-to-pixel wind change, it's not something that I can confirm, thankfully. So that's a good sign. Hopefully we go the entire night and can't confirm anything. That would be the best case scenario. We do this coverage, but we hope and pray that nothing comes from it. So that's clearly where we're at right now. And of course, the folks down here, I'm sure would use your thoughts and prayers on a night like this as these storms continue to move in, as they will over the next few hours here. Current time is 7:26, now 7:27. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologist John DeLusick, entire WTVA 9 News team behind the scenes here. Our Gabe Maynor is changing positions to get in line for some of these other thunderstorms as they get closer to Choctaw County, as they work their way for locations south of US 82 in particular there, where we're watching that potential as this line of wind and potentially tornadoes continues to move from west to east and southwest to northeast through the area. Back to the latest scans here on Storm Track Doppler radar. Again, the north end of this, you see here, this is a severe thunderstorm warning. I'll see if I can get it to kind of pop that up. It's going to probably require replacement here in the next few minutes, with potentially an additional warning that might clip sections of Grenada County. I don't know if it goes quite to Calhoun County, out to Webster County and Choctaw County, for the potential for some wind, and that there is some rotation with this. Now, that's why, as you'll note here, rotation indicated, not enough that the National Weather Service has gone and chosen to issue a tornado warning on it, but it's not an impossibility that one could be required, because it's certainly one of our stronger storms still at this point. We're just unfortunately looking so high up that we just don't have the greatest eyes on it at this angle. I do want to bring in our meteorologist John DeLusick, and I'm going to borrow some of those eyes here for a moment as we're looking at this. And John, just kind of looking at the latest on this, anything you're seeing that I might not be catching?
There's not much. I think I need to keep an eye, obviously, on the storms that are along the Mississippi-Alabama border region, and a little bit of that activity up around the Oxford area. Those storms are trying to flare up, but neither area is showing any stride at becoming severe right now. One thing to mention, I know a lot of folks are traveling. It's a Saturday, and watching some of the stuff up from the Memphis area where they've had some flash flooding. That's a little bit of a danger up there. So by any chance, if someone's planning to go up that way here in the next couple hours, please be careful. There's a lot of heavy rainfall up that way. So again, right now, nothing much being posted. That's usually good news, but it is nighttime. And again, we're just starting to get those storms entering our western viewing area. We'll certainly be watching out. Most of the folks have been posting these shelter-in-place photos.
Okay, well, hopefully that continues to be the case. Yeah. That's kind of best case scenario. John was referencing some of these storms. I'm not sure these are surface-based enough to produce strong wind gusts at this point, maybe 30, 40 miles per hour at most, Ripley there, and this one to the east of Oxford. This is not an environment that's conducive to produce tornadoes right now. Now, that could change as that wedge of moisture, we've mentioned this a couple of times, as that kind of works its way northward. Let's take a few seconds here prior to this getting a little trickier and look at that potential. I'm going to kind of pull up some forecast data, so give me a moment. Just part of what I'm doing here is just making sure nothing has changed between now and our 5 o'clock broadcast. So, excuse me, 6 o'clock broadcast. So a lot of stuff going on here. What we're looking at, I'm looking at that line of storms pretty close on its positioning versus where we were at. With the kicking over to 7:30 there, it's kind of updated the positioning. It does have a couple of these storms running ahead. That's not necessarily the case, but the positioning on our line's pretty good, pretty close. So we're looking at the intensity on that line as it shows it merging in. And as this kind of moves in from the west, you'll notice how the northern half here, north of US 82, I know I have you partially covered up there. See if we can get it. Unfortunately, because this is in my storm tracking mode, we got a lot more cities and a lot more stuff on the map here. But you can see how the northern half here is not quite as impressive as the southern half until we get closer to around 10:30 or so. So for those of us joining us on ABC, just checking our projections here, they do show the instability continuing to work farther north, and certainly there is a preference for the southern half of the area and the eastern portion of the area as we go into later on tonight, as that wedge of moisture kind of moves in for those locations. That said, we do have a tornado warning, multiple tornado warnings that remain in effect for parts of our area at this point, including primarily Atala County, but in the form of 2 different tornado warnings at this moment. One of those near the Durant community and US 51 working its way northward, where we have been tracking it for about the last 40 minutes or so, 30 to 40 minutes on air, and then of course behind the scenes prior to that. Looking at Hoffman, we show at 7:36, West Community at 7:41 there, Beatty at 7:47, Carmack at 7:48, and then 7:52 for Vaden. This is an area of Doppler radar indicated rotation. Nonetheless, encourage you to find that tornado safe place. If you know somebody that lives ahead of this, some of those locations, take a picture of this, send it to them, make sure that they get to that safest location as the storm kind of moves into those locations. Some strong straight line winds as well possible with this line. There's another area of rotation that's prompted tornado warnings, including, we've got to go all the way down there south, south and east of Canton there, east of Madison. This area looks pretty impressive on that area rotation, but that's one of them that eventually is going to try to work its way up there closer to maybe Louisville, might head toward Ackerman. That's the one we've kind of repositioned our Gabe Maynor for because of that. And a new severe thunderstorm warning that we kind of talked about a few minutes ago, now issued for Grenada, Montgomery, Webster, and northern sections of Choctaw County, and you can see the tag on that is rotation detected, and because there are areas of rotation, not a full-on tornado warning, but enough rotation to certainly monitor. Tornadoes remain one of the bigger concerns as we go into tonight for some of those spots, and so if you do live in this area, we need to be identifying those safest places and making sure that as we're ahead of this, we're keeping our phone charged. We have on hard-soled shoes in case we have to run outside real quick, or we unfortunately experience damage and have to go out after that. You want hard-soled shoes on for that, and you make sure that phone's charged. Those 2 things are huge. Make sure you have meds that you might need, and you gather those important documents. And again, if you're ahead of this, even though this is only a severe thunderstorm warning, we need to be evacuating those manufactured homes and getting to a safer location for those spots. Let's track ahead of this. Again, about 50 miles per hour, the speed that these storms have been moving. Let's get the angle. Make sure this is the correct angle. That's right, I think. So there's some of the times on your screen as we look ahead of this. Might snap a picture if you know some folks that live out there, say in Duck Hill or Grenada, or they live in Eupora or Mabin or Vaden or Kilmichael or Winona, to let them know that this line of strong winds, as well as some rotation that could at some point produce tornadoes, is moving in and moving a little bit closer. Looking at that wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, I do not have clear-cut areas of tornado-producing circulation, thankfully. But as we've talked about probably a number of times, and we always do in this situation, unfortunately, we're just looking too high up to know for sure exactly what's happening at the surface, which is why Doppler radar is a tool, but it's not perfect, and that's why there's that margin for error. We always encourage you in this situation to take the safest possible option, the path of least regret. So looking here near Durant, looking for that wind interaction. We show north of Durant. You can see between West and Durant at this point here, where we're watching the most closely. I'm going to kick back over to the precipitation mode. Yep, still kind of lines up there. It's an area of interaction, and anytime one of these bends back and you get this S sort of shape, we get really concerned in the middle here that something could be spinning up. And because we're looking over a mile up, a lot of times we don't catch what's going on at the surface in this. And so that's why, out of abundance of caution, the National Weather Service now expanding that tornado warning as well to northern Atala County, southern sections of Montgomery County, and most of Choctaw County in effect until probably about 8:30, I would guess. Yeah, 8:30 is when that tornado warning is in effect. So new tornado warning going for those spots, new weather calls going out for those locations there as additional areas of circulation come in. These are more broad than is typically the case with tornado warnings. National Weather Service in Jackson, because we've had so many significant tornado touchdowns to the south and so many at least brief tornado touchdowns where we have better radar data, again, trying to have less regret, issuing larger warnings maybe they typically do in this situation to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible. So that's why this new tornado warning has been issued for some of those spots. And so looking ahead here, tornado safety rules, a reminder that if you're in these locations, what do we need to be doing? We need to be getting to our safest location. That means, and I'm going to look at this one here, southwest to Kosciuszko here in just a second. A sturdy structure, middle of the lowest floor of a sturdy structure, a small windowless room where we can wrap up with blankets and pillows, put on a helmet to protect ourselves from debris, and stay there until we can give you the all clear. Unfortunately, with where we're at, kind of in a zone where I'm not going to have a great look at this. This is from, that's the radar around Jackson. Let's look at the radar that's in Monroe County, which is, again, looking fairly high. Don't have a good lock. We're not going to have a great lock on the lowest level, unfortunately, on this there. But we do have a camera in Kosciuszko. On top of the Breezy News Tower there, looking back toward the south, toward this storm. And I think in particular what we're looking at, I'll see if I can zoom this in. And we're back here on ABC for a moment as a new tornado warning has been issued for Choctaw, Webster, and parts of Montgomery County. It's the same line of storms that we are watching. What I'm going to try to pull up here, I'm going to try to see if we can zoom in on what's going on in that upper corner there as this rotating thunderstorm that has prompted this tornado warning kind of moves into the area. So let me zoom in. It's going to get a little more grainy, but we can at least kind of have a better idea what we're looking at. Obviously, a lot of cloud-to-ground lightning with it, and we're going to be watching very closely this area here. Now, a lot of gray, as you can see there in the background, that's that heavy precipitation. Typically, in this situation, it's going to be on the front end here where we have something that tries to spin up on this, perhaps even kind of the left of the center there, where we're watching. So our meteorologist, John DeLucic, you're going to pull that up on Weather 2 and just kind of keep that up to take a look at it, if you can. Just so that we have that up just in case something ends up popping up on that. Appreciate the good folks at North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters for giving us this eye in the sky, and the folks at Breezy News as well for helping out with that. Let's go back to Storm Track Doppler radar and looking at that storm. So we would be looking southwest from that camera location kind of into this bank of clouds there and into that area near Bolatusha that could have some rotation with it. It does not look terribly impressive on Storm Track Doppler radar, and that's a good thing. But there typically is not a ton of lead time before these you really kind of pop up and in here in this situation. So let's go and track that whole batch there from west, the Bolatusha, all kind of northeast, and again, at about 50 miles per hour into this newly minted tornado warning. And a reminder that this is for Doppler radar indicated rotation that could develop into a tornado. Thankfully, in the last little bit here, one has not been spotted. Give me a moment to adjust this times because of new radar scan coming in to make sure we're in the best position possible. So as you'll note here, we show Kosciuszko at about 7:42. Current time is 7:38. So this is moving into Kosciuszko from the southwest. I would say the most dangerous portion is the section up here close to the west community. But certainly down here, there are some spots where something could try to spin up. As you saw on that camera a moment ago, thankfully that is not the case at this point. French Camp, just about 8 o'clock. We're looking at Ethel at about 7:53. If you know some folks there, maybe Ackerman, maybe Biwai, maybe Reform, Mississippi, might send them a picture of this to let them know at the time that it's moving toward their community so that they can know that they need to get to a safer location as this moves into the area. To kind of clear that off of the screen, let's kind of do a wider assessment on this line, see what we have. Certainly, I would say the storm down here southwest of Carthage looks rather rough. That's probably our roughest looking storm at this moment. Thankfully not in our area, but unfortunately it's in a zone that it will move into our area. Let's get an angle and let's get a longer track on that. So that angle, I have that could be heading, well, hold on, let's take the time to get this right. So give me a moment while I do this the old-fashioned way. So it's right there. So ignore the times you see on the screen here. I just wanted to get my angle right. So that is about the angle that is headed. And the time actually should be fairly close. Let's make sure that I have the time there. Nope, that's not. Let's go 50 miles per hour on that. Let's clear it off. And so generally speaking, that one, if it continues about that rate, we'd be looking a little more than an hour to Louisville. Eventually, if it made up closer to Columbus, close to around 2 hours for that particular part of this line of storms as it moves in. New mesoscale discussion, John. We'll check that out here in a minute when you get the chance. But a line here that unfortunately has had a history of producing some tornado damage, some spotty damage down south, and could potentially try to continue to produce that as it moves into our area. Looking northward on this line, up here closer to Winona and Grenada, again, Doppler radar indicated rotation with this kind of very wobbly line here. Lots of little areas of limited spin. Thankfully, nothing on this that screams imminent tornado, though watching that area near Winona fairly closely. Well, hold on. Near Winona, there's a couple of spots in here pretty close to Winona that we got to watch this very closely. Yeah, let's get a storm track on this specifically, and we'll put basically everything we can throw onto the storm track, one of those really close ones, and make sure we're at 50 miles per hour on this track. And John, when you get a chance, we'll double check the motion on these just to make sure we're good on that. So again, Winona, I'd be in my tornado safe place there. Certainly looking at Fox at about 7:47, Minerva at 7:52, Sweatman at 7:50, Catarata at 8:09, and Dentontown at 8:11. Doppler radar indicated rotation. What we're looking at for some of those spots, rotation that does look like it is increasing somewhat right there south of 407 on the southeast side of Winona. I know we had a big tornado there almost 2 years ago. Not at that level with this, but certainly it is a strengthening thunderstorm, a strengthening area of circulation. And though technically you are not under a tornado warning at this instant there, I would definitely be working my way closer to my tornado safe place if I lived in that spot, because this is definitely one we have to watch closely. I do want to bring in our meteorologist, John DeLusick, here for a moment. John, what do you have? Well,
the wind is picking up on that Kosciuszko cam, as a matter of fact. We're looking at right now. If you want to bring that up, it's starting to get pretty rainy and windy on that cam. I would venture to say, again, if there's something's happening, it's going to be happening in the next few minutes over there. Or at least it's starting to pick up pretty rapidly.
Yeah, it does look like, well, and unfortunately it looks like that camera might have just had some kind of power disruption.
Indeed, it looks, or at least, or maybe it looks almost like some part of that city, just the lights went out.
There we are. We're back. Okay. So yeah, you're right. The wind picking up. You can see definitely just on that light down there at the bottom. A lot of heavy rainfall with this, obviously moving in as well, and that wind whipping around. A lot of cloud-to-ground lightning. So, and power disruption, something that we are monitoring via our partners at poweroutage.us. I do believe we can probably bring that up here for a moment when you get a chance. So certainly the southwest portion of the state where we have the most significant reports. Attala County, we're at about 290, so almost 300. That'd be customers. Of course, that's more people than that. It's just the number of individual customers. You know, for each household, that'd be a customer. The power outages we have in Winston County look like they've been resolved. Okay, because they were earlier this evening. Go just west of Attala County there. I think it's Holmes County. Just west of Attala County, one county, because that's where this has been straddling that county line. And so you can see they're up to about 800 for at that spot there. So power outages increasing some, but luckily are not widespread, everybody. So hopefully that's a good sign there of what we're looking at. Kind of an overview of warnings. And John, I'm going to have you, we're going to pop this up behind you for just a moment, John, as we kind of do an overview of some of the warnings that we have at this instant.
Well, I mean, basically, I don't have the list, but I mean, you can see the...
Yeah, go ahead, and we'll pop John up here for a second full.
Okay, so you know, basically the warnings right now, again, that are happening, you can see the activity, again, as I get out of the way here, slip out of the way, you can see the activity, again, Ackerman area, you're looking at Choctaw County, you're looking at, obviously, Attala County, the Kosciuszko area right now, and you're looking at those warnings going on here for the next little while. And it does look like we're going to be looking at, again, we're just looking at those storms not producing what we call, I mean, anything in the ways of, let's say, tornadic activity that's been confirmed on the ground. These are just radar reports right now, and at least what I've been seeing. There are radar reports that are just showing, hey, we've got some possibility thereof of a tornado that could be in the form of developing overhead. I think you got the radar back up over there that shows you that the activities were just moving through the area, and we have not had any reports, Matt, have we, of anything that's touched down, correct?
No, we have not, thankfully, and hopefully that continues to be the case. It does look like there might be some kind of data disruption going out.
That's what I was about ready to say. You know? But
yeah, that's what I was kind of checking behind the scenes here. It happens from time to time, and it's like there's severe weather, and so that sometimes causes data disruptions there. As I'm switching between different radar sites here, I think that might be one of the issues that we have going on. So we're going to keep this on the Columbus radar because it looks like that has our newest data. Very wobbly line here. And near Carmack, where I'd show the most intense part of this, though there are some areas there closer to Kosciuszko, some broader rotation up closer to Carmack is where it's a little bit more significant. I want to check based on this latest stuff up here closer to Winona, because again, we're looking fairly high up, but there's a zone in here on the east side of Winona, just north of US 82, working towards Spring Hill Road, Alva, Lilac, Lodi, that this has some rotation there as well. Still showing up fairly broad, and it does not look like I have anything that I can confirm looking at our debris indicator there, thankfully. Hopefully that remains the case. We'll double check down here and look at that area of rotation I show near Atala Road 3231. Atala Road 3231 near its intersection there of 3122. If I go back here to the wind mode, there's a couple of spots there that look a little bit more impressive, on particular this southern one there. Let's go ahead and circle it. We haven't had to break out the rotation circle a lot this evening, thankfully, but they're near Carmack where we're watching the most closely. I'm checking debris. I don't think that's something that I can confirm at this instant, thankfully, but that is a part there we're going to have to watch very closely. It's on the northern end of this tornado-warned thunderstorm. Get the angle. I think it's good that part, the most impressive part, is going to cross out of that warning here fairly shortly if it hasn't. A couple spots in there. So let's look back at the wind. So we get that to pull up. That wind has not updated, so we're going to track it based on the latest where that is there. I'm going to include Eupora in the longer track on this. This is a improving circulation, unfortunately, as we look here in, this would be northern Atala County, moving into southern Montgomery, northern Choctaw, eventually heading into Webster County, an area of circulation that is increasing in intensity. We've talked a lot about these little wiggles in the line, right? And when you get this sort of S sort of shape, we look toward the middle of the S. That's where we're seeing that rotation increasing. That's definitely a spot we're going to have to watch very closely going forward. So if you do know some folks that are in this, the path of this, some of the locations listed there, make sure to snap a picture and send it to them. This is an increasingly intensifying storm that, if it's not producing a tornado, could produce one fairly soon if it continues to progress like it is. Looking up this line, tornado safety rules, despite the fact that you are not under a tornado warning, I would still be in a safer location east of Winona near Lodi and Lilac, some of those spots there, getting a storm track ahead on this area of circulation, the closest one that we do have there. And I'll take this all the way to Calhoun City. We show Calhoun City about 8:24. Current time is 7:49. So if that were to hold together, again, Doppler radar indicated rotation. This is not officially a tornado at this point, thankfully. Not one we can confirm. Rotation is increasing. The presentation on radar is suspicious. It's night. Just better to be safe as opposed to sorry. So that's why we're tracking that ahead for you. As we go south on this line, and I'll pull those tornado safety rules down so we can have a better look at kind of everything else. Looking at the section here now, Kosciuszko eastward, and we'll look at the wind mode. Some broad areas, not as impressive. I'm going to try to see if we switch this back to where we can get the stuff out of Jackson. Perhaps that has updated better. It does look like it has. And luckily, I do not see, hold on, look near Barnes there. Well, there's one area near Barnes and Patterson there that has increased a little bit the rotation in the last few moments here. Let's track that northward, speed at about 50 miles per hour. And so there's your times, as you can see, toward Ware at 8:20. We're looking at Ackerman about 8:27 for you, but Patterson 7:54, Rule Hill 8:07 as that moves toward eventually Chester and Fulcher as well as Fentress at this time. So strong wind potential, but I think also some rotation there that we're definitely going to have to continue to monitor as that moves through. Our camera there in Kosciuszko, we've been kind of checking back in and on that one. Certainly settling down a little bit. The strongest portion of this through Kosciuszko, awaiting an update to our data there. Wind gusts that showed up to around 26 miles per hour at the nearest reporting station. So certainly fairly breezy as that kicks through, even behind the storm as it's now kind of kicked through the area, though it does look like that reporting station might be just a little bit, just a hint ahead of that. As we bring this back here on Storm Track Doppler radar, to kind of where we're at here, kind of look at the latest information, still going south, a number of other thunderstorms. One of the things that we've been kind of monitoring, and we do need to probably, first off, we're going to take John's mic up and down while he's on there and when he's not. But let's, John, I'm going to have you kind of get on the phone with Gabe if you can, just to kind of touch base with him, see where he's at, make sure he's in position, make sure he's at a safe location, if we could do that.
He did report about 10 minutes ago.
He did?
Yes.
Okay. So he's in the right spot there.
He also wanted me to mention that.
Okay, well, we can bring John up for just a second.
Okay, he also wanted me to mention here when I had a chance that there is a shelter in the Ackerman area that is open. That's in downtown Ackerman at the courthouse.
Okay, and Ackerman is under that tornado warning. You do still have a few minutes there in Ackerman if you want to get to shelter. We typically do not encourage you to do a whole lot of traveling during tornado warnings, especially because if I say it now and it takes you 10 minutes to get out the door, well, that's no good. That's a much more dangerous situation for you. Time to Ackerman. Current time is what, 7:52, and this shows Ackerman by 8:21. So again, that's about 22 minutes or so. Certainly, we encourage you to do the best you can to shelter in place in this situation. There's a little bit of time there, but if it takes you 5 minutes to get out the door, you don't have a lot of time to get where you need to go. So that's part of the reason why, once the tornado warning is issued, we need to be to the best possible option where we're at. Cars, trucks, mobile homes, not places we need to be. We need to be in a sturdy, site-built structure in a small windowless room as this moves into the area because of the potential that it could produce tornadoes. Looking north of Barnes there and east of Kosciuszko, and I'm just looking at the precipitation mode there where I have a couple areas that have some additional rotation on it there. The one north of Barnes, one of those that's a little better. Let's see how old this data is now. See, that data, I show 746, so still a few minutes old. So the positioning on that might not be completely up to date. Though it's going to be lower resolution, let's go look at the data coming out of Monroe County. And so I show it closer to Patterson there, closer to Ethel, where those two areas are. And let's see how old that data is, just double check. And then, well, that's a couple minutes old. That's 7:49, so about 3 to 4 minutes old. And that's about how often we're getting these updates there. So looking kind of on the north part of this, let's kind of work north to south on this once again. Eastern Grenada County, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning. Rotation detected. The tag for the National Weather Service there in Jackson. A few areas where we do have some interactions, some areas of rotation with this there. I don't see a clear-cut tornado out of this, thankfully, on this perspective. There's an area there south of Lilac that I'm watching a little more closely than most. Do I think it's a tornado at this instant? No. And I don't think it looks quite as impressive as it did a few minutes ago, where the angle was a little bit more like a tornado producer. See how it has kind of that angle, and then it kind of goes more north-south on the latest scan. So hopefully that's a sign that the tornado potential or whatever damaging wind potential could be weakening a little bit. Near Poplar Creek, though, watching another area there where we have had some circulation. When it was near Carmack, it was a little more pronounced right there. So let's go ahead and now look and see how that has progressed in the last 5 to 7 minutes. I still show it there near Poplar Creek and Winfrey Road, south of Mississippi Highway 407. There's Kilmichael, there's Huntsville, Mississippi, French Camp behind the bug there in the corner. This is our area of circulation. Not a tornado for sure, but an area of rotation that, because we're looking about a mile up, could have something more going on down at the ground than what's going on up top there. So tracking that toward the north and east, kind of the direction this is going, likely to cross out of this tornado warning here fairly soon. And there's kind of the angle that we're going on it. And I'll double check the tornado debris mode. I do not have anything that, necessarily yields tornado debris, thankfully. But that is that is certainly an area that we're watching. Luckily on the rainfall mode here does not look quite as impressive as a few minutes ago. Hopefully that's a good sign. But as we talked about, there's this wedge of moisture. It's got to be a better term for that. That's just a meteorologist term. But essentially there's this wedge of moisture here, this narrow corridor of moisture that's working northward. And this is kind of on the top end of that. Either this Minerva storm or the Poplar Creek storm is probably on the top end of that wedge of moisture and more unstable air that's kind of moving into the region and then most likely to kind of trigger these additional tornado warnings. And so it's just kind of on the north edge of that where we might have the strongest winds aloft still going on, and you might have the more unstable air, and there's kind of a, unfortunately, kind of a primed location somewhere in here where that's going to be the case. This point has proven to be a little bit farther south, but as moisture's aloft kicked up, there's a very wobbly line. Wobbly lines sometimes produce tornadoes, hence the reason the National Weather Service is issuing tornado warnings on this thunderstorm as it moves northeast through the area. Checking the wind mode on Storm Track Doppler radar, still fairly broad across most of this line. I'm going to see if we can bring up the Jackson radar here again and just kind of check how that is looking. And there have been some spots of concern. At this point, I still just see primarily broad sort of rotation, areas where there are interactions, but luckily not something that I can confirm. As we've talked about over and over again, not being able to confirm is a good thing because when we confirm, that means people's lives have changed for the worse. So tornado warnings continue to be issued south of this area as well along this line. The current time is 7:56, now 7:57. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside meteorologist John DeLucica, Craig Ford, and a few other folks here behind the scenes continuing to assess the situation. New tornado warning issued for Winston County. That is a tornado warning because of these thunderstorms. And they're fairly large tornado warnings, not typically as precise as maybe we're used to getting on some of these, and that has to do with the fact that it's night. And many of these storms have proven to produce tornadoes with very little lead time. So if they call the individual areas of rotation, which is what we typically can do because of the locations we're looking at too high away from the radar, I think that's why they're kind of issuing larger tornado warnings. So these fairly blanket tornado warnings hitting a lot more people than maybe they typically do in this situation. So with that in mind, let's look at the opportunities for wind damage there as well as rotation. That one near Edinburgh there was a lead storm that's kind of merging with the line, and that merger, we talked about this at 6 o'clock, probably going to happen in western Winston County here, up here someplace, and that could enhance it'll be interference. Is it constructive interference that encourages additional tornado development, or maybe a strengthening as it represents hitting that sweet spot we were talking about, that primed zone for tornado development, or is it something that just kind of messes everything up? We'll obviously know together here within about the next 25 minutes, but a lot of times when you get a cell merger occurring with the line, it can at least briefly enhance the tornado potential. So that's our concern as this Edinburgh storm, Alice storm, southern storm there southwest of Louisville kind of merges with our line that's produced these tornado warnings back out closer to Kosciuszko. The Jackson radar does pick up on something interesting here. There's some spots that brighter red you can see working from south to north here. Not necessarily the thunderstorm itself, but that's that surge of moisture we're talking about. It makes me more confident that this is probably the spot there on the north end of that wedge of moisture where it's possible that this could be trying to, again, produce a tornado. So that's why this zone up here closer to Kilmichael and Stewart and Huntsville is one that one of those spots there that we're definitely continuing to track. So let's look here in more detail at that. Again, the north part here will give you some times for Eupora. Looking at Eupora there about 8:18, again assuming about 50 miles per hour. Hohenlinden there at 8:35. Tom Nolan there at 8:10, Stewart at 8:05, Pelez at 8:09. Some strong winds, rotation that could potentially produce a tornado. Thankfully, we're still in that maybe, possibly, not guaranteed phase on this. As we clear this out here for a moment, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon.